All right, how's it going out there? I'm Mike Brightman, and today I'm with Lumion, and we are going to take a look at Lumion 10. So believe it or not, there has been 10 versions of Lumion released. We just got Lumion 10, and I couldn't be more psyched about the new features. So in today's webinar, we're going to go through all of the new features, but I'm going to do it in such a way where I'm going to work through just kind of a typical workflow that I use. And I'm going to call out the new features as I go and also offer up some tips and tricks along the way. So let me get myself off the screen there. And yeah, let's get rendering. I've got my chat panel up, and if you guys out there, it always helps to know if you just give me a shout on the chat panel, let me know that you can hear me okay. So Lumion 10, lots of improvements here. Let's just kind of hit some of the highlights here for just a moment. We've got, it's kind of a new interface happening, or not a new interface, but more of like a refined interface. So the start screen has been improved. We can now import our models when we start a new template. We have some new layer scenarios going on. We have bigger thumbnails. We have the object libraries. We can hide it away. So there's a handful of new refinements to the interface. That's nice. Not like a complete overhaul, but just getting better and better. Also, some of the big new features are like the fine detail nature. Those new trees and plants are absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to show you how those look good in the foreground of your rendering. Some other big new features would be like that high quality preview. I can't tell you how much that has changed my workflow of just being able to click in the preview window and see what I'm going to get. So that's a super cool new feature in Lumion 10. In previous versions of Lumion, you'd have to like render out a test shot and then check it and then render a test shot, tweak it, back and forth. With Lumion 10, you just click in the preview window and you see what you're going to get. So we have some nice new real skies, more new objects, new materials, displacement mapping. So let's get to it. We have a lot of new features to cover. So we're going to start with just hopping through and working through the workflow. So let's do that. Nice, hearing me loud and clear. I like to hear that. So, all right, so here we are inside of Lumion 10, and this is our new start screen. All right, so you got your familiar things like your computer speed. Something you should take note of is that we do have a brand new example scene. That's the Villa Van Manen, and we've got a lot of nice tutorials on that example model, and lots of stuff you can follow along with. So definitely check that one out, and that is the model we're going to work with today. But this is the example one. You can get in there and click around. I'm going to make my own. Also, keep in mind that our news and learning section, while maybe this isn't completely overhauled, this is just an important thing for you to be aware of. This is always updating and changing, so be sure to check back here and take a look at these different news and learning and online tutorials. This is how you get really good at Lumion. All right, so I'm going to click on New. Now, when I click on New, this is a new screen. So you can see that we do have our 6 scenarios going on here. We have like our plain, but then we have a forest environment, we have a tropical environment, we have our mountain range, and our suburban environment. So we have some new templates that actually have a bunch of vegetation already loaded in. And so that's kind of a nice way to start. If you just need a background just to hit go, these new environments are pretty handy for that. But check out this button. I'm going to click Select Model, and I need to navigate over to my, let's see, we're going to go with Presentations, New in Lumion 10, and here's my Villa Van Manen SketchUp model. I'm going to choose my model right here on my start screen, and that way when I click my template, it's going to load it up for me. So this is kind of skipping the entire steps of live syncing or importing your model. So that's kind of a nice new feature. It's going to dump that Villa Van Manen SKP model at 0, 0, 0. So give that just a moment to get in there, and then we're going to orbit around and take a look. Perfect. All right, so check this out. The SketchUp model is dumped into my plain environment, looking pretty good. And if I click on that model, you can always see your type in dimensions. And you can see that our position is at 0, 0, 0. We're in good shape. Okay, so while we're here at build mode, I want to call out some new some new features in build mode. And so we really have like an expanded environment happening. So let's hop over here. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me deselect this, and we're gonna talk about some improved materials. So the way that the workflow goes with Lumion is you build your SketchUp model, you build your Revit model, Rhino, any of these different modeling programs, you create those models and then you import into Lumion. And I have a very specific formula that I follow every time when I'm building my scenes in Lumion. And it starts with texturing, and then I move to adding objects, and then I move to adding effects. And that goes with my stills, animations, virtual tours, virtual reality. So what I want to talk to you about now, though, is the improved materials. So that's like the first step. Your model gets in here. It doesn't look that great. It looks kind of cool. And we got our nice background, and we have some nicer shadows maybe, but we don't have nice materials. So let's take a look at materials, and just to kind of give a once over on the materials that are new in Lumion 10, we have 133 new displacement map materials. Now those, I'm pretty sure those were displacement maps added to previous materials. But whatever it is, the displacement map, displacement slider, it gives this extreme sense of three-dimensionality on any of your textures. We also have 34 new materials, and we have a new custom materials library. So let's get to texturing this model, and I'm going to call out some of these new features. Okay, so inside of Lumion here, let me just get some better sunlight happening on my model here, and I'm going to go to my material editor. And now, of course, as I move my cursor around, I can click on any of these different materials. And let's start like with this brick here, or this stone. So in Lumion, you have the ability to either swap out textures or replace the textures with Lumion properties. So I'm going to make this into, I'm going to go to outdoor and then choose bricks. Okay, now if I take a look around here, see, these are all just those regular Lumion materials. But if I start clicking down the line, check this out. The displacement map materials have a D icon in the bottom right corner. All right, so as I hover around through these, you can see that each one of these is a different displacement map material. And I did find a pretty nice brick here at the end. I like this one. I'll click on that, and we can kind of zoom in a little bit and get a good shot of that. All right, so check it out. If I double click on any one of these materials, I can edit it. And then you can see that we have this displacement map slider. All right, so we can kind of push that brick's three-dimensionality in and out. Super cool. Like this is much more than like adding the normal maps and all that. We get so much more just complete three-dimensional displacement here. Okay, so maybe what I'll do then on this brick is just work it a little bit. I'm going to go with, we'll head over to our weathering, and you can dial up your weathering a bit and try some different weathering effects. Sometimes like plastic on brick can look all right too, just to get a little bit of a scuff going on is nice. Maybe I'll add some foliage just for the heck of it here. So we'll add our spread, we'll bring our leaf size down, we'll adjust our leaf type, and of course I can bring my ground level. If I hold shift, I can make like a much more precise or subtle adjustment. And so that way we get just a little bit, I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense on that brick, but point is you can modify your brick, all right? And I'll check OK. So now we've saved those changes. So our displacement mapping, we'll look at some more displacement map materials, but before I do that, let's hop over here and look at some more displacement mapping. All right, sorry. Let's take a look at like this bike path over here, and we'll go with like click here and go with various, and then we have soil. So I found that the displacement mapping really kicks in on some of these like soil, and you can really see like the three-dimensionality happening there. Let me scoot over, and maybe we'll use this as a better example, and go to various and soil and take a look at some of these three-dimensional soil maps. Like this one has footprints in it. The sand is so cool. And if I double click on the sand, you can really see that displacement mapping happening. So I mean, you can actually sculpt your sand a bit. You can still do that like in your 3D modeling program. So you can give it the waviness, but you don't have to model all those little divots. The displacement mapping takes care of that for you. So I found this to be really powerful new feature. It's in my experience with it so far is that while it is exceptional for brick and a lot of the other textures, but the reality that it brings, the realism it brings to the different ground cover materials has been the most exciting thing in my opinion. So definitely click around and check those out. You can always find your displacement mapping materials because they do have this D next to them. And make sure you click through those sub-tabs too, because there's a lot of options in here. Just tons of options. All right. So we've added some displacement mapping, but I want to go back and take a look at this brick that I worked on. All right, so like, let's say I've got this brick now, I added some weathering to it, and now I want to keep it for use later. Well, we have this new custom materials library. So I can save this to my custom materials, and I'm going to just name this MB brick, like that. And I'll say, okay. So now that material has been saved to my custom materials library. So I can now access that custom materials library inside of this model, or in my next project, I can go and I can use these different materials. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to head over here to this other kind of stack. I mean, this looks like brick to me. Let's make it brick. All right. So I'll click. I'll go to my custom materials library. So this is a new feature here, custom materials. And then here you can see I have my MB brick, and I can just click to assign the exact same brick with the exact same properties. I don't need to copy and paste the properties. I don't need to save the material out and load the material in. It's a very streamlined way of creating materials that you like and then reusing them wherever you want to. All right, let's see, what else we have? So I think we're good to go on materials. Of course, I don't think I can ever do any demonstration in Lumion without just quickly talking about 3D grass. That's just my absolute favorite thing about Lumion is that 3D grass. Not new in Lumion 10, but certainly worth noting that the 3D grass in Lumion is absolutely spectacular. So anyways, let's load up a material set. I've already got this model all textured and kind of taken care of. So I can just load a material set, and that way the model is going to look the way I want it to look, and we can start to add some objects and kind of move on. So if you're not familiar with material sets, this is a great trick. So these buttons up here, material sets, if you get a lot of your kind of default textures taken care of, save it as a material set, because then you can just load it every single time. So it basically like paths together the material name with the properties in Lumion. So that's a function worth exploring to save yourself some time. Okay, so let's take a look now at some of the expanded environments inside of Lumion 10. And when I say expanded environments, I'm talking about two things. We're going to talk about real skies in build mode, and we're also going to talk about the OSM height maps. So let's hop into Lumion again and take a look. So I'll check OK here, and let's see, we're going to go over to our weather tab. So the environments in Lumion, I mean, that's the strength of Lumion, is that you have the ability to craft your environment. So we have this new real skies in build mode. So the real skies were previously only available in the effects in the camera and animation studios and all that. But now in build mode, I can choose from all these different real skies. So you pick your time of day or your kind of sky scenario, whether you want like a nice sunset going on. Look at that, that's perfect. Real skies in build mode. Click on that tab again, we can go to clear. I usually opt for a clear day when I'm working, and don't discount the night real skies. We're gonna get there. These aren't great for modeling or crafting your scene in build mode, in my opinion. Maybe we'll switch over to those in, when we look at the night sky renders. But yeah, I suppose if you're adding lighting, these would be super handy. So, what I was going to say is that like I don't typically use the night skies for working on my scene, but they are absolutely spectacular when you render them. All right, so let's pick like, I'm gonna go with a cloudy day, and we'll just pick kind of like a bright, sunny, cloudy day. And then of course you adjust the direction. So we have real skies in build mode. All right, now the other big improvement is on our OpenStreetMap tab. So this is on the Landscape tab under OpenStreetMap. We click the power button and turn it on. So we have the ability to now import these height maps. So we bring in real world terrain right inside of Lumion. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna click on this pick GPS coordinate, and then I'm gonna type in, I did find a site, what is it, just north of Napa in California. It was kind of a nice rolling hill and some mountains in the background. So you type in your location, you can do a search, and then down here at the bottom, while that's loading, you can turn up your OSM range. I'll mess with that again, and the real important piece of this is this button right here, which says, right now it says do not download height maps, but we're gonna check that on, and then we're gonna actually download those height maps. So just gotta get this guy, it's kind of taking a moment to refresh that map. I'm gonna be patient. Let's see. I'm gonna scoot this a little bit. It's hard for me to be patient on these. Let's see. All right, we're just gonna hit start OSM download. We weren't getting our preview in the map, but that's okay. We're gonna see now the OSM download happens, and then, I'm sorry, I do need to download our height maps, all right? So I check that download height maps button on. I'll go with start our download, and here comes my terrain, all right? Now, let's let that crank for just a moment, and then you can see that like this shifts, and check that out. We've got all these rolling hills and mountains in the background. That is absolutely fantastic. And these are realistic, you know, these are pulled from real world data. So here's a tip for you though. What I don't love about this import is this kind of land use circle that happens. So what I've found is I just turn off these checkboxes. So I turn off my water, my earth, and my land use. And what that leaves behind, my buildings and roads, I think that's cool. I'm okay with leaving those intact. But you know, so now it just has a more natural feel, I think. And so if I'm going to use this feature, I would turn those off. But keep in mind, you know, you can go all the way. Like if you've imported your roads, you can turn those off and turn off your buildings too. But we're going to leave our roads and our buildings checked on. All right. So now, you know, what I would probably do is just adjust my model just a bit and move that up above my Lumion landscape. And so now, you know, check that out. Again, we'll just kind of do like a quick circle around here. And you can see any rendered shot of this house is going to have a beautiful, realistic backdrop. So that is the new OSM height maps inside of Lumion. All right, that looks good. So let's now, you know, the next step after, you know, we've textured our model, we've crafted our environment, and now it's time to add objects. And there's a lot to talk about with objects in Lumion 10. So as usual, there's new objects. There's always new objects, and that's exciting. There's 364 new objects, and we're going to look at some of the nature objects, specifically the fine detail nature. So we do have 62 new fine detail nature objects, and those nature objects are just so I don't know, what's the best way? Fine detail. I mean, the name says it all. It's like every leaf is shaking, the texturing and the just the depth of the textures, everything about them is so much more realistic. So they do work really well in the foreground of your scene. I'm going to show you how that works. Some other improvements and new features in line with objects is that we have a paint placement tool. So now we can just like paint our trees and our rocks and our logs and shrubs onto our model. It makes it super easy to craft that entire context environment. We also have large thumbnails and the ability to collapse the library viewer. And also there's been some subtle improvements to the layering dialog. So let's get to it. Let me see here. Just checking my notes. And yeah, let's hop into Lumion and take a look at objects in Lumion 10. Okay, so first thing I would do here is I would probably just start by looking at the paint placement tool. I mean, it's just so powerful. Let's go to nature, and I'm gonna pick a tree. And I gotta be honest, you know, the library in Lumion, I mean, it's grown. Like at this point, there's, I think the final count was 5,758 objects in Lumion. That's pretty outstanding. And you know, I mean, I was already very satisfied with the nature library. It just keeps growing. So as far as I can tell, you know, we have conifers, we have broadleaf, we have palm trees. Each one of these has several subtabs. If you're not familiar with the Lumion library, it's expansive. It is huge. So look at all these subtabs. I mean, tons of trees. So it seems to me that, you know, I'm no landscape architect, but you know, a tree like this looks like something that might grow in California. We'll go with it. All right, so like, you know, you can just click to place a tree. You know, that's possible. But this new, I'm going to go with a bigger size on this. Maybe, let's see. Oh, I just want to pick a bigger tree that we can really use to craft our environment here. That's almond tree could work. I think these elms are more in line with what I'm looking for. So we're going to go with an elm. Okay, so I've picked an elm tree. Of course, you can like click to place those elm trees. That's old news. This button is new, paint placement. When I click on paint placement, I now have this like brush that it's kind of similar to those landscape tools. And I'm gonna back the density down. I like to go down maybe like to 0.6 and watch this. You just click and drag and just dump all these trees into your model. It's so easy just to like scatter those trees. And then I can go and hit erase, and I can kind of like thin the herd here and just like, you know, get rid of some of these trees to make it look a little bit more natural and spread out. So the ability to just paint all of these different trees in there makes it so easy to craft this entire environment. Let's do it again. I'll switch back to paint selected object. And as I click and drag, you know, I can kind of like scribble around a little bit. That looks good. We'll pick another one. Let's just kind of march down the line, and I'll pick a few that I think might look good in here. Maybe some of these in the foreground like that. And, you know, you can even kind of work in over here. Let's see, I'll keep going down the line. This big leaf maple, that's kind of a nice big tree like this, like that. All right, and then when I use my eraser tool, you know, if I want to thin out, it's only thinning the tree that I'm on, all right? And it doesn't matter if I placed that tree with, you know, like this, I'm on this big leaf maple 2 XLRT. Now, if I place those manually, like one at a time, I could still use the paint placement to thin them out, but it's only responding to that one tree right now. All right, so let's just kind of zoom down in and take a look. And, you know, really the goal here is to just get the environment to look more natural so that like when I take these shots, I mean, that's gonna be great with the mountains or the hills in the background, lots of trees kind of blocking that horizon line. And it's only until I get over here that like, you know, I'm kind of empty on this side. But honestly, I mean, that's no big deal too. Like it's pretty easy. I could just use like, I'll check okay. And, you know, maybe I'll just like grab a handful of these trees and hold Alt and make a copy of them. Let's see if I can do that. I'll just try and grab a handful of these guys. I want to freely move them, not up and down. So I'm gonna do a free move over here and see if I can just, you know, copy a handful of those like that. So looks good. You know, so then I can just kind of keep working these around. That's sometimes a good way if you just need to kind of do a quick cheat, get some more trees in there, we're in good shape. All right, let me see here. Okay, and I think I did copy those once. Yeah, it's fine. We'll leave those alone and deselect. All right, so we're in good shape now. We've got our trees crafted. All right, so now let's take a look at our fine detail nature trees. These are a separate collection. If I go to place And then over here on my object library, we can see Find Detail Nature. This is a new object category. And, same deal, you hover around. And, this actually, if I just go and find a tree, let's see, I like the chestnut is a decent tree. I know we always find our favorites here. And, all right, so if I kind of position this, I can hold L, and that's a shortcut to kind of resize it. And I can hold R and I can like rotate around, get the look I want, and click to place it. Now, take note that when you are placing these Find Detail Nature objects, we do not have the option to paint place. And I'll tell you why. Because these trees are so detailed, and we don't want to dump a ton of these into our model because they do slow down render times a little bit. That's kind of our disclaimer, but I haven't seen a big impact on performance. As long as you're not just like dumping a forest of these Find Detail Nature objects, you're going to be just fine. Use them in the foreground, and it will really dial up the realism of your landscape, your landscape context. Let me add some more. I'm just going to click through here, take a look at some of the other ones. Here's like sweet chestnut. We'll kind of use this over here. Maybe that'll go like in the side yard. And what else do we have? Some of these like ghost gum, that's kind of neat, different shrub looking thing. And we'll put one over on this side too. And let me just zoom in on that one. Like, look at these, like each leaf is like flickering, and I mean the amount of animation and detail and movement is pretty spectacular. All right, so we've got a couple of those in there, and let me see what else we can do. I'm going to go back to place and just work through this again. And I think we do have the option with a couple of shrubs, and yeah, here's like some fine detail plants. So these are real nice too. Again, using these in the foreground of your scene like this. And so I'll just place just a couple of those right here like that. Looks good. And what else do we have in the shrub region? Plants. It's kind of a cool grass. Yeah, so lots of options. Be sure to dig around in that Find Detail Nature library and place those in the foreground of your scene. Don't fill the whole background of your scene with Find Detail Nature objects. That would slow you down. So we want to be moving fast. And honestly, you wouldn't even get the benefit of it. I mean, probably first instinct is to like just use the Find Detail Nature because they're better. But if the tree's way back off in the distance, I mean, you're not even going to see it anyway. So just use the standard nature objects, which already look spectacular. Okay, so you may have noticed that my thumbnails are pretty nice there. I've got like these nice the thumbnails and the ability to hide. Let's talk about that. First, the thumbnails are in your settings. Use large thumbnails. That's on. All right, so we're good. If we're off, these are the kind of old thumbnails that we used to have. So, some people like that, and that's okay. Go for it if that's your thing. I do like the new thumbnails. So I'm going to turn those on. That's in your settings. All right, so now we have these large thumbnails. And a new feature of the object library is the ability to hide. So that way you can kind of get that library out of your way for a moment, and then it's easy just to click on that thumbnail and get it back. So just some kind of workflow tweaks on how to make it easier to kind of get to the object that you like. All right. Let's see, and then one other object that's kind of cool, it's new in Lumion 10, is a landscape cutter. Now you can see here we have like a pool in the backyard, and I'm just gonna, I'm not really experiencing the problem that this fixes, so I'm gonna make the problem. I'm gonna use the height tool, and I'm gonna raise my ground here just a bit, and let's see if I can just get like my terrain to come up here. There it goes. All right, so let me undo that. That was a bit much. And there we go. All right, so see how the grass is showing up in the bottom of the pool? Well, that just happens because Lumion's landscape, it's like coming up, the model's kind of buried in there. So check out this new tool that fixes this. So I can go to my objects under utilities, and I can choose cut. All right, and now you can even see what it's doing. It's like eliminating the Lumion landscape. So whenever you have like a pool or a basement, you can just place this in here, and I can stretch it and see it just gets rid of the grass in the pool. So that's kind of a nice fix. There's some workarounds previously on how you could paint the landscape and push the landscape down. They were workarounds. This is like a tool that directly addresses that issue. So that's pretty cool. That's a new feature in Lumion 10. And you can have two landscape cutters at the same time. All right. So let's see. One last comment about our object library is if I go over to place mode and let's see, let's just go to like our car collection. This is super cool. I can go to the search window and I can type in new. So I'm just going to type new into the search panel, and this shows me what's new in this collection. So I can tell you that, making tutorials and kind of, always like, what is new? I just want to know the latest and greatest. So this is the easiest way to find out what's new in Lumion. What are the new objects? Just type new into the object library. And so for any of these different objects, like if I go to outdoor and click search and then type new, we'll get a different collection. So these are all new models in Lumion 10. Pretty cool. All right, let's place some cars though. I'm going to go out here and let's see. Let's go something more modest. I think something like that. Whenever you're placing these objects, I think it's always a good reminder to remember the keyboard shortcuts. The keyboard shortcuts are showing up in the bottom right corner of your screen. Place on terrain, random size, not so much for cars, and height either, but rotate and color are killers. So rotate, I can just hold R, and then I can tap C, and it will toggle through different colors. I mean, that's super handy, and I mean, oftentimes I just kind of make all my cars either black or gray or white anyway, but the ability to just tap C and get a random color without having to think too hard about it is pretty nice. I've got my landscape kind of goofing up here. I'm going to fix that right there. All right. Okay, so that's kind of everything. I want to talk just a bit about our new layers. All right, so that's another improvement in Lumion 10 is our layers up here. You can see that it's just become a little bit easier to manage these layers and know exactly what's going on with your layers. So when I select an object, I now can choose its layer here, assign it to a different layer, and then that layer visibility is controlled up here. Also, we have this ability to automatically hide the layer button. So maybe you just want your layers to always be on. Like if you're actually working with your layers, extensively adding objects and moving between layers, I think it's a good idea to let your layers be on. And then your current active layer, in my opinion, is a lot clearer. It's just you pick a layer to be on. And it wasn't bad before. I understood it and I got used to it. But I think that anyone coming in the door is going to find that our layering system has been improved drastically in Lumion 10. All right. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. We've got some of these new features going on. We're moving fast, getting our scene populated. But that's what Lumion's all about: is the ability to get something out the door right away, like in an hour. That's what I love about Lumion. So let's get over into our effects and start pushing something that we can actually print and deliver to a client. So in Lumion 10, we do have some new effects. There's the real skies at night, there's Aurora Borealis, and then there's photo matching and AI artist style. So all of those are pretty cool new effects. I'm going to show you where they all are, and we'll demonstrate a handful of them. The other thing about the effects that I think is it seems so I don't want to say it's insignificant, but it's such a small tweak, the high quality preview, the ability to do that. I'm sure it took a lot to make happen, but it's such a small thing that I now use over and over and over again. And I'm going to show you how high quality preview is going to drastically expedite your workflow of getting to the result that you want much quicker. So let's take a look. All right, so inside of Lumion, I'm going to hop back over into my photo studio. And of course, whenever I'm doing exterior shots, I always double click on that focal length and type like 35. And then, it's just a higher focal length kind of flattens out that elevation. I think it makes it look a little bit better. Let's get some of our hills in there into this shot. So maybe something like that is cool. And I'll just set up a handful of shots here like this. And, again, I want to get some of those like rolling hills going on in the background since we did import those. And maybe we can do like a close-up shot with, our fine detail nature. So that's really what I'm getting at is like keep those fine detail nature plants in the foreground. Okay, so check this out. The easy button. And I forget when styles came out. It was like maybe 3 versions ago. But styles are truly the easy button. You click on a custom style, you choose, say for instance, realistic, and now I'm going to click in my preview window. And check it out. It automatically updates, and it gives me a much better idea of how this is going to look in a final render. So see what I mean? When I orbit around, and then when I let go and click, it's going to render a preview. So that's the new high quality preview, and you get a much better idea. I mean, you can like zoom in on things, like get real up close, and then say like, all right, let's render that one. And you start to really understand like how the skylight effect and exposure and like some of these effects that used to like be a little mysterious, they would kind of like come into play after you render, not in the real-time preview. It makes it much easier to understand those. So I'm gonna hop back to this view, and we're gonna go to our real skies and change our heading like that. And so now, we get our nice clean preview. And let's just render a shot just to see what this is all about. I'm gonna kick this out at 1920 by 1080. I'm gonna send it to my desktop and my temp folder, and I'm gonna call this image 1. We'll just overwrite the one I've got in there. So Lumion's ability, it's just so fast, so easy to make these renderings happen. You can see, the ability to get something out the door in seconds, that was not possible just a couple years ago, or it's not possible in a lot of other programs. Let me open that folder and I'll hit enter, and that's gonna open that image. And I mean, that's a pretty nice rendering for very little effort and very little time, all right? So remember, this is the easy button. You just click on a style and adjust the real sky and hit render. So that's the easy button, but maybe we'll spend a little bit more time on the next one. And let's check out this view. And maybe we'll click through and actually craft using some of the new effects. And all right, so let's set up a night scene. All right, so now for the night scene, I do want to kind of reposition my camera just a little bit. If we're gonna use these real skies at night, I'm gonna do another camera over here. And I wanna just be able to look up at the sky a bit, and maybe I'll back this focal length down a bit, get something a little more dramatic where we're catching a lot of that sky. All right, so that's pretty cool. All right, so here's our new real skies at night. So I'm just gonna add that effect, and we'll go to sky and go to real skies. All right, so now we can click on the thumbnail here to select a different real sky. Of course, I forget, there's 50 real skies, some amount, but a lot of options here like that. And we get to night. Now these night real skies, I'm just gonna give you a heads up. It looks really cool right now, but it looks so much better when it renders. And even on the preview, even when you're previewing these, they still don't do it justice. So let's just take a look real quick and render this. It should render super fast. If I just render out, I'll just overwrite image 1. And I just wanna see that real sky at night and get an idea of how fine that detail is. So I mean, even the preview is not giving us a perfect version of that real sky at night. So keep in mind, yes, it's really awesome, but it gets even better once you render. All right, so here's the problem. I don't have any lights in here. I don't know, I need to get, the focus is not the sky. While I do love this image and I love these new real skies at night, the focus should be on my project and on my architecture. So we need to add some lights. Now, lighting can be tricky, but lately I've found that there's kind of a quick cheat. All right. So it seems to me that in Lumion, there's always like, a couple different ways to do things. So you can do like, the super fast way that just gets you a result like immediately. Or, if you have some more time and you want to spend some time thinking about it and polishing, you can do that. So we're going to go with kind of this lighting cheat that I've been using a little bit lately. And I'll show you what that's all about. It's using Omni lights in just a couple spots. And we're going to get some nice light cast on this project. And I think it's going to look really good for our real skies at night. So let's do that. I'm going to hop back into build mode and get this thing taken care of. All right, so we'll go to build mode. And in build mode, I'm not going to use my real skies right now. I just want to bring down the sun because I'm going to place some lights. And I want to be able to see where I'm placing them. So if I just kind of go to this dusk, I'll be in good shape. All right, so the first thing I want to do is kind of get inside the house, and we're going to place some Omni lights all over the house. Now, I'll go to place, I'll choose lights from my category, and then I'm going to hold H. This is another one of those shortcuts where I can lift it up. Oh, sorry, I want an Omni light. So we're going to go with an Omni light here. Okay, I'll hold H, and you can adjust the height of that Omni light. All right, so as I move it around, you can kind of see that it starts to glow. Now, Omni lights are a special kind of light. They don't cast shadows, they just push light. So this is just going to kind of brighten up our room here. So I'm just going to go through the rooms and drop in a handful of Omni lights. And I really don't have to be too careful as long as they're like, not right on a wall. It should give a nice, cast like a nice even light. So then I'll just kind of go upstairs and then drop a few more Omni lights here. And I can just fly right through the wall and maybe a few more in here, like that. And like that. And I forget where I'm at in this house. I think, yeah, we got one more bedroom to do. All right, like that. And then I'll just click, click, and click. All right, so let's go outside. Let's go take a look at what we've created. So now you can, maybe at this point, it would be a good idea to go back into our environment, our weather. Let's try our real sky, So let's go to real skies at night and pick that one and see what we're getting. All right, so again, build mode is not going to be the best representation, but it gives me an idea that now the inside of my house is glowing. So we've got some success there. All right, so now the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to turn off that real sky for just a moment, get back to this mode. I want to throw some spotlights. Now, spotlights are different. They can cast shadows. So I'm just going to drop like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 spotlights around the outside. And I'm going to point them at the house. And what I want to do is push the light across the trees to throw some cool shadows onto the house. So I'll go to Objects and go to Place. And again, I'm going to go to my spotlights. And, I wish, I don't know that it matters. I mean, I usually just grab a random spread on. I don't really have a favorite. I tend to gravitate towards the softer spreads that don't have like kind of the hard lines. But I don't know if, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but for what I'm doing, usually everything looks pretty good. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hold H, and I can kind of lower this down. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. This isn't going to be like absolute realistic lighting. I just want to get a light like roughly, we'll do like one here and one here. And then I'm going to put one, maybe I'll put one like over here, like that. And then I'm going to scoot around the house over here. And let's add a few more of these spotlights. Like we'll do like one here, here, and here. All right, now check this out. I have all my spotlights placed, but of course they're not aimed in the right direction. So we're going to use a few shortcuts to select all of our lights, and then we're going to point them all at the house. All right. So right now, if I hit the M key, that gets me back to like my select tool. The last light that I placed is already selected, so I can use the select all identical objects command, and that just grabs all those lights that I just placed And then check this out. I think this feature gets overlooked sometimes. Target lights. I click there, and then watch what happens when I click on the house. All the lights point where I clicked. And you know what? I can change my mind. I can click again. I can click over here. You know, you can kind of mess with it until you get the look that you want and get these guys all pointing, you know, maybe like pointing more towards the back of the house. And, you know, of course, you can like adjust these lights after you're done, but I think we're good there. I'm going to hit OK, and we're going to see what we get. Of course, you know, Lumion is so fast, you can always make changes. But right now, I think that that's kind of cool. That's mission accomplished. We got a few of these lights and shadows, you know, pointing at the house there. Another tip is to just warm them up a little bit. You know, if you go all the way red, it gets kind of crazy. But if you make the light more orange than pure white, that's kind of a better look, it seems. I'll hit deselect. I'm going to select one of my omnis and then click select all identical. Again, I'm going to like just warm those up a bit, and we'll see. Oftentimes, I leave the brightness alone. We'll see what it gets us, but I can tell you that if you start this game of like dialing your omnis way up to 10,000 and then your spotlights to 5,000, and then you gotta knock it back down with your exposure, it becomes this battle of the sliders. And I found that if you just kind of leave them alone, everything looks pretty good. Tweak it with effects and be subtle with your adjustments. You know, so if you're going to go from 500, maybe go to 1,000 at max. And on the other spotlights, these guys, you know, these are set to like 300 by default. I don't know. Don't take them over 500. You know, try 100. You know, see what it's like if you go lower and add a few more lights. So that's a tip on lighting, is just kind of stick with the defaults. All right. So we're in good shape now. We've got our lighting added. So let's head back here to our night scene and check that out. All right, so we've got only our real skies effect added. So let's work through and let's add some more effects. You know, I like my night scene, but we only have real skies. So we'll click add effects, and another new feature is this show all. I think these are the maybe these are like the critical ones that you absolutely should use versus like show all is everything, right? So anyway, I'm just going to work through these kind of as I always do. And the order did change a little bit. We have a little bit more organization happening. So sun, I'm good. Weather, I'm good. Although weather, I do usually add precipitation, and then I knock down the quantity, size, and fog. And that way, you know, see how the street now is wet? I think that just looks cool. I like, and it's not just the street, it's the sidewalks and everything. And you can adjust the phase, you know, if it's like overkill, maybe just a little bit is a good look. Okay, so that's precipitation. Sky, we've already talked about real skies and real skies at night, but we also have this aurora borealis effect, all right? Now I click on that and check this out. I'm just gonna go nuts, all right? Like tons of brightness, and that's like true aurora borealis, right? And it's super cool the way that it works, and we'll look at like, you know, animating this in our animation studio. All right, so while this effect is super cool and I like it a lot, I think it's not necessarily realistic. I mean, you know, this house in Napa is not going to have the northern lights happening, but I can tell you that like if you bring this brightness, let me mess with my color shift. If I bring the color shift over, it gets more pink than green. And if I bring the brightness down and just make it subtle, you know, you get a better, you get, you know, kind of a nice dreamy look happening. You know, it's just a little bit of magic happening to your night sky. And I think that that's a way to use this effect and just give a little bit. You know, a lot of these effects, it's like with cooking, you know, you don't get a handful of salt. You just give a dash, you know, a little bit of each effect, and you're going to get the look that you're going for. So we'll just go with a dash of aurora borealis, you know, keeping our brightness down, our color shift off the green, and we're good there. All right, so we've got our aurora borealis in there, and let's keep working through here. Objects, nothing real new here. Camera, I always add a 2-point perspective. That gets my Gets my verticals kind of shored up with my frame. And then I like, let's see, I like lens flare. I'm always adding lens flare. You know, it just makes the whole thing kind of a softer image. And I won't go too nuts on that. And we'll go with another effect. Animation we don't need. Outlines, I'm gonna leave, well, let's try it. You know, outlines, whenever I do that, I knock down the transparency and then bring our outline density down a touch. For this specific image, I'm gonna leave my outlines out of this. That is pretty cool. It's got a nice look. I'm gonna leave them alone. We can make that decision later. All right, so more effects. Let's see, we're good there. This AI artist styles, we'll look at that in just a moment. Let's finish up our night scene. And then, of course, these are like the most important ones. All right, so reflection, gotta have reflections. And speed ray is just critical. I mean, you're gonna get much better reflections down here just by turning on, you know, your speed ray reflections. You can kind of see that happening where like we actually get the car. And then if we add reflection planes, you know, that's where we get like perfect reflections. Now, I've been told not to add so many reflection planes, but I've got a super high-end computer and it renders so fast anyway that I tend to just, like if I see the glass, I just go for it and add the reflection planes. I think it's fine. But if you don't have enough reflection planes to kind of get all the glass in your one view, I would just rely on speed ray. It seems to be good enough anyway, you know, especially for glass. All right, and let's see, what else do we have? Shadows. This is going to be critical for this image. All right, so let's go with like soft shadows. So you know, and again, I've gotten so used to it now where I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute, why doesn't it look that great? And then the high quality preview updates, and now I'm getting my shadows. But check this out. All right, so I'm going to scoot in and take a look at this. All right, and then we get click, and there's my preview. Perfect. I'm going to turn on soft shadows, and let's see, we get our update like that, and then we can do fine detail shadows. And this one might be a little bit tough to demonstrate for a night scene, but like fine detail shadows, I always turn those on as well. We're in good shape. All right, looking good like that. All right, so as far as effects, we've got our shadows, reflections, skylight is always on, and then hyperlight is always on, and I tend to just turn it up. I've heard other opinions of just kind of keeping it down here, but I just dial it up. All right, let's render this night scene. I mean, this is getting to be pretty spectacular. So I'm gonna hit render photos, or render that photo, and I'll just overwrite that one. And let's let that one cook for just a moment. And again, like 12 seconds it takes to render a night scene. And I gotta tell you that previous to Lumion, I wouldn't mess with water, and I wouldn't mess with night scenes. They were so difficult to get them to look right. And like this lighting cheat that I showed you of just dropping some omnis inside the house and then throw a few random spotlights, you know, projecting on the outside, I think it's a pretty nice look. I mean, if you just throw that on there just to get it out the door and then spend your time polishing, you know, if you need that image. But if you want to communicate the design at night, I think that's pretty strong what we've got here. Let me open that folder, hit enter, and there's our final image, 1920 by 1080. With more focus on the architecture, but the night sky is really popping, and we dialed down that aurora borealis effect, and maybe even too much. You know, maybe I would just give it a little bit more magic in there, you know, to get that photo real dream effect. Like, yeah, it's not complete reality, it's just better than reality. All right, so I'll hit OK, and let's see. Let's go back over here to this, let's see, like a daytime view is what I'm looking for. And I'm just gonna choose like kind of a backed up view, and I'm gonna go with a realistic style. I'm gonna go to my real skies, adjust my heading, and this time I'm gonna add the new AI artist styles effect. All right, so I can go ahead and that's on Artistic 2, AI artist styles. And now this is a brand new effect, and it's using artificial intelligence. you click on the thumbnail. So yeah, you can see that it's added here. I can click on the thumbnail and I can choose to represent my design in the style of one of these classic artists. So for instance, like a Monet, I click here and then let's hit render. Now, a tip on the AI artist style is that when you are rendering, it's always best to render at 4K. All right, so I'm gonna render this one out and say okay, and let's let that cook. So I think that the idea behind rendering at 4K is that the AI artist style, it just behaves better when there's more pixels. So also keep in mind that when you are rendering this, you're gonna have to go through and render out the render out the base image. So you get two outputs. You get this realistic style that I already chose, and then we're gonna hop in to the AI artist style and render that out as well. So this might take just a moment, and I probably could have chosen a easier style, but we're close, we're close. I'll take a moment while this is cooking to say, that Lumion 10, the big idea there is like breathing life into your design, crafting that environment, giving you all the tools you need to build the context. So you can really see that with the real skies, with the nature objects, the OSM height maps, the ability to craft this world and then put your model into it. That's really what Lumion's getting at, and I think they've nailed it on version 10. So we'll just hang tight for just a moment more. And so this is our Lumion's, I forget what we call this, our neural network springing into action to kind of interpret our design into the style of Monet. So. There we go. Pretty cool. All right, so I mean it's pretty wild, the capabilities of artificial intelligence to, recognize. Of course, I don't fully understand what's going on there, but like the ability to recognize the style of an image, the style of an artist, and apply it. And I think that what's the most exciting part of this feature is that artificial intelligence, AI, has been addressed. So this is super cool. But who knows what's coming? That's what I'm excited about. See what happens next. So anyways, we can open our folder and hit go, and then there's our image and just kind of a cool representation of the project. All right, so there we go. Let's say okay, and God, I just love these real skies at night. That's where it's at. All right, so one other new effect I wanted to comment on is our photo matching effect. All right, and that is under camera, and you click photo matching. Now, photo matching, I'm gonna hit edit on the effect, and we're not gonna actually go through the demonstration because there's some great examples and tutorials. The idea is that you can reverse engineer your photograph and calculate your camera position, focal length, and whatever it takes to match that view inside of Lumion, you can now do. And there's all kinds of really slick tools to get you to that point faster. But check this out. Up here we have our examples and our tutorials. And on the examples and tutorials, we have all these different photo matching all these 6 at the top. But more importantly, we have 3 tutorials: quick start, beginner, and in-depth. So just take your time, watch the tutorials, and learn. You can either kind of use Lumion to do the cropping and image editing almost inside of Lumion, or your photo match exports out a mask as well. So it makes it really easy to hop into Photoshop and then just crop out the image and get rid of the pieces of your photograph that you don't want and kind of blend them with your model. All right. Cool, so we're good there. We're not going to use that photo match right now. I'll just get rid of that. All right, so that kind of shores up our effects. And then I've got one more new feature I want to show you. It'll maybe be 5 more minutes here, and we'll wrap things up and take some questions in the chat panel. So what we're going to do is take a look at improved camera control within our animation studio. So in the past, you used to just like, you'd set a point, and then Lumion would kind of, animate between those 2 points, but it would always like ease it. It would like accelerate and then decelerate at the end. Now we have the ability to do the linear easing, like just a nice consistent speed to the camera. Let me show you what I mean. So first off, I'm going to copy these effects. I'm going to hit edit and copy the effects. And that way, when I hop over into my animation studio, I'm going to take a new clip and I'll add a point here. And I'm going to add another camera point over here, like that. And then I'll click play. All right, so now this is going to be my camera path. And you can see that like right now, it speeds up and then it slows down. And so it's kind of like, this ramp up and then ramp down. And that's represented here by these ease in smooth and our, ease out smooth. So if I want to get a different effect, I can just do a linear ease. So ease in linear and ease out linear. And now my camera is just giving a nice consistent speed from point to point. So that's super handy for just advanced animations. I was really happy with that. I used to kind of work around it by adding extra camera points, and it's just a nice feature now to have that nice, clean, linear ease. And check it out, slower is always better. You can double click on your, let me pause this for a moment. You can double click on the length and then back this up and maybe say like 8 and see where that gets us. All right, so we'll click play. So that's kind of a nice, easy pace. If you start speeding through your projects, you can make everyone sick, right? So that looks good. All right, I'll check OK. Now, remember, I copied my effects. I'll hit the edit menu here and go to paste effects. And that's going to drop all that night sky. Let's see. Let's see, real skies. Oh, there it goes. Sorry, it was just taking a moment to kind of get its update, but yeah, we're good. And so this real-time preview, this is happening inside of the animation studio as well. And let's preview it. Let's hit play. I mean, even the preview is pretty nice. Like you can see that the real sky gets kind of knocked down in quality just a touch, but it's going to look spectacular when we render this. All right, now here's the thing though, is that Aurora Borealis effect is really cool when it's animated. So let me show you just a quick tip on keyframes, how to animate, and keep in mind, like, yeah, this is for Aurora Borealis, but this is for any effect that has keyframes. All right, so we're gonna head over to our Aurora Borealis effect, and I'm gonna just slide my timeline back to the beginning, and we're gonna go with our time offset. All right, so I want the time offset to kind of start at the beginning, and I need to add a keyframe. So there's a keyframe. Now I'm gonna slide this guy, scrub it all the way to the end, and then I'm gonna go to my time offset. I'm gonna add another keyframe, and then I'm gonna move my time offset to the end. I also wanna bring up my brightness a bit, and let's get our color shift kind of going. I just wanna make it very clear that this effect is happening. All right, so I'll hit play, and check this out. Now you've got like the animated Aurora Borealis happening. I mean, that's super cool. So that's the process for adding in some animation, because if we hadn't added those keyframes and kind of animated that effect, it would just be like static Aurora Borealis. And that's the whole magic of it. It's kind of like, twinkling and all that. So, maybe I would back that down if it was like for a final render and all that, but I think that's pretty cool for this project here. We'll leave that one alone. All right, so yeah, I appreciate you guys coming to the webinar today. I'm Mike Brightman, and Lumion 10 is available now. It's been available for just over a week, and get in there, give it a shot, get the demo version, and click some buttons. If if you're thinking about upgrading, I mean, it's like a no-brainer. If you don't upgrade now, you're going to have to upgrade later because you know that there's going to be something else coming down the line that you're going to want, and you're going to have to double up on your upgrades. So I find just stick with the release cycles, get these new features. You know, the high quality preview is killer. The fine detail nature objects are absolutely spectacular. All these new features together just makes Lumion 10 that much better. So very psyched about this release. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And I'm going to hop over to the chat panel and see what kind of questions we got. I think some of the Lumion crew is answering those, but I'll take a look now and see if I can demo a few for a few minutes and see what's going on. Thank you. All right, so what do we have? Let's see. Let's see, I'll say, I'll scroll to the top here and take a moment. Yeah, so George, this will definitely be recorded, and yeah, I think that it shows up on the channel shortly after we finish. So Danny asking a good question about what are the computer settings and what are the computer requirements for Lumion. Now, I can, whenever I talk about computer specs, I always say you'll never sit in front of a computer while you're waiting for it to think things through and say, you know, like while you're rendering and chugging along in some big project, you're never going to look at your computer and say, I'm so glad I saved $500 on this machine. Just spend the money, go nuts on the specs, and then you'll be set for, you know, a couple years. So right now, this particular machine has an RTX 2080 Ti, and that is definitely on the higher end, and I haven't checked those in a while, but you could see, you know, what's the latest and greatest. But I can tell you that if you spend at least spend $500 on your graphics card, that's like a good standard. You should be able to get really good performance with $500 on the graphics card, and yeah, just, you know, push the specs, go nuts on it. I mean, of course, I don't know what the minimum specs are because I don't even care what the minimum specs are. I want to go so far past the minimum specs. You know, I want like 64 gigs of RAM, and I want as much onboard RAM on my graphics card as I can. And the processor, you know, you want to have a good processor, but that's in my from what I've read and understood, the processor is not the critical piece of this thing. It's all about that graphics card when it comes to Lumion. So we do have some tutorials at Lumion.com on picking machines, so that would be a good place to look that up. Let's see. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom. Let's see. Do we have any... as far as new materials, there's no ability to search that new feature in the new materials, but in the marketing on the marketing page, I think they call out the new materials there. Let's see. The questions are fantastic sometimes. Yeah, all right. I think I'm just gonna call it there. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say you know, we'll work on the chat here. Some of these I'm not exactly sure how to answer, to be honest with you. And I think it's just a safe play to call it good here. And so anyway, thank you guys very much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.